Like I was listening to I think a podcast with Lex Fridman and
Mm-hmm.
somebody else, and this guy was talking about different like levels of civilization.
Yeah,
Of
yeah. I thought
humanity.
that was interesting because you have a person from a zero level of civilization hypothesizing on third level civilization that can control suns by Dyson spheres, which is, come on, that's such a theoretical nonsense to build something. A Dyson sphere is where you harness the sun's energy by building a structure around the
So
sun.
you think this guy was kind of crazy
No, it's the same
or
thing.
kind of
They
far out
go so
thoughts?
far with if you had a civilization that could go just cross light space without any effort. Yeah, that's what we have already from what it shows.
But wouldn't it make sense though? I did kind of agree with him in the what he was saying about controlling the weather.
Well, that's the
Wouldn't
first civilization. That's
that
us.
would make sense.
That's us.
We should be able to soon be able to at least control.
We already do.
weather more.
China right now in the drought areas, and it's something that Saudi Arabia does once a week. We just don't talk about it, okay?
Do we do it
We
in America?
seed. No, it's too fucking expensive.
Mm-hmm.
We seed the weather. Okay? We seed the clouds with, I believe it's titanium and super fine particles of dust that attract moisture. We make clouds and we make rain. It costs too much. Saudi Arabia is so fucking rich, they can afford it. China uses their entire economy to supply the people who have that run the place with rain when they want it. That's just not feasible. So, yeah, we can control the environment. We also control the environment by putting out CO2, which the aliens have already said,
But-
you guys are idiots.
But Mike, what about more like diverting meteors and stuff like that may impact us?
That's
'Cause that's
still
not really possible yet.
no,
right?
that's very possible. The problem is we're building telescopes that look so far out in space. There was a meteor came by last month. It just popped out of nowhere because it wasn't in the regular elliptical. It was coming in from this area. It popped out and went right by, and we go, oh, we kind of missed that one. Well, how many more are we missing? Because we're only looking in the places we randomly think they most likely come.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a smart tactic? That you're going to leave your flanks open because you don't think you got troops that's going to affect you there? No, that's a very stupid tactic. And while we look millions and millions of light years into the past, we can't look at the present. We can't spend the billions of dollars to look at the present to warn us because we don't even believe these asteroids and meteorites exist or are a threat. Even though the impacts are all over the frickin' planet, we still don't think they're that big a threat.
Like as a whole, like humanity as a whole, we don't really regard them as that.
12,000
scary or
every
what?
12,000 years they strike and destroy humanity.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're in denial about that. We won't accept the facts that here is the meteor strike. The records, we can see them by different mechanisms. You can see where we've been impacted. 35, 25, 12, 12, 9, and most likely 10, 9. It might have been just the one that missed and came around and hit the second time in the year. And most of these things are from the torrid meteor shower, which the torrids are, when you do the trajectory and lining, Tanguska, which was in 1920, which was, if it would have hit a town, it would have destroyed LA.
Oh yeah.
It would have taken LA out.
That Tanguska event is the one with you see all the trees blasted over.
Just
right?
leveled.
Yeah.
It was a skyburst event,
Right.
which then proved that a skyburst event has enough energy to do damage on the ground, which that is exactly what happened. And there's no evidence of the meteorite at all, or the comet, because it blew apart above the ground and just whoo. And it came down little things, but the energy kept going. Even though the trajectory is coming like that, even though it explodes, all that explosion still is going this way. It just goes, pfft. And it's like, if you take a shotgun from 100 yards away,
Yeah.
it's still gonna fuck things up, right? But a bullet will fuck things up a lot more, it appears. But a shotgun will just blast stuff. So that's exactly what happened. It got, instead of a bullet piercing, blasted. Where that's a skyburst. But I think the ones that hit the Great Lakes, it wasn't a skyburst, because in Tanguska you have a shallow ponded area, okay, where the initial impacting areas were. The Great Lakes, you have a very deep gorge in several locations that line up specifically with meteor events from the Carolina
So
Bays.
we've been hit with a bunch of different kinds of events.
Every
even too.
12 to 13,000 years, it shows up on the levels. If you look at the iridium, the platinum, the black layers, and the different mechanisms they use to date these major events,
So we're about
due.
due.
we're due.
About due for something.
We're due.
Yeah. But
And-
people have been saying this for a long time, but maybe they've been right though, huh?
No,
So
they've
we're
been
due.
saying they had a movie out just last year. Look Up, and they kind of made fun of it because they wanted to push the climate change shit.
Yeah.
Look up, yeah, look up. Don't look up if you really want to know the truth, okay? Because looking up, that's where the danger comes from humanity. It doesn't come from men. Men always devour men and keep going.
So in a catastrophe, we're so screwed. I think Rogan's got guys on. They talk about this kind of stuff all the time. But like, when there's not going to be anything left of us if something happens.
Well,
like,
and here's
all of our stuff that we make, we don't have anything big to represent
only the
what we've
people
had.
that have lived off grid or outside of the city will even have a blasted chance. But even so, our water's gone, our electricity's still here, which is amazing. But we can't replace that, so we have to protect that. So these are going to degrade. Eventually, all this shit's going to degrade, and you're going to be going back to hunter-gatherer. 12,900 years ago was a glacial event. We had miles high of ice sitting on top of the Great Lakes. The entire northern hemisphere, you had the Laurentide ice sheet, and you had another one over here. All the fresh water was up here. In the Andes, the temperatures were so warm that at 12,000 feet you could grow corn. How improbable is that? I can barely grow corn at 4,000 feet. And you're telling me at 12,000 feet the weather was warm enough to grow corn. The only phenomenon that would explain the weather of that nature would be if all the cold ice was locked up in the north, okay, and the south was being bombarded by and kept warm, and extensively warm, more warm than it is today, right?
Yeah, but how would that be if you're saying if there was more ice on the planet, wouldn't it be
Colder?
Would it be colder?
No, it would be colder there. Do you feel the cold from the refrigerator?
No.
But it's got ice.
Yeah.
But it's sitting over there. But it's controlling the area here. The area here, if it's controlled and doesn't have a lot of movement, is very stable. So this down here is all the fucking hurricanes and warm weather and hurricanes coming up from the Pacific from down here, very warm ones. So most of the time it's going to be the equator down is going to be much warmer, okay, than from the equator up, which is exactly what we saw. We saw civilizations flourishing at Titicaca, 10,000 feet above sea levels. It could have been so hot at sea level, like it is in Guatemala today, except maybe 10 or 15 degrees warmer, that it was actually that much warmer above. We don't know because we haven't been there, but if you extrapolate, well, if you take all the cold energy and put it right here, where does the warm energy go? There's the same amount of heat coming in.
But okay, so then you'd have select areas, but your average overall Earth temperature would be cooler, right?
It would be the exact same. Anytime the energy of the Earth.
But they're saying that we're warming up right now.
Okay, slowly. The energy of the Earth is a closed system being supplied daily by the sun, okay? And gravity holds it all in, okay? The magnetic field shields us. Every day we have the same amount of energy in here. A volcano comes out and a little is released. If this energy starts to bring all this cold part of the energy here, right? And cold here, the hot energy the sun's still coming in. It has to be warmed here, and the layers will keep. When you put fresh water and salt water, they do not mix. When you put hot and cold air, you create wind. So you're going to have wind currents here at the equator, circling and drawing up to that cold all the time. Drawing up from where? From the warm south. So you're going to have areas that are much higher, much warmer. But as soon as you release that cold, it's going to set up everywhere, and the whole temperature of the rest of the world will go down, because all this energy, ice energy, is here, which means that all the heat energy is here. When you mix it up, you get storms like we have. And that's where we're going to get more storms. But when you isolate it, you have hotter areas
right now, huh?
Pardon?
We're kind of like in a transition right now, or what?
Oh yeah,
that's why it's getting.
We're basically, we're supposed to be going into an ice age, I believe.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, but we're heating up. Okay, and basically but that's supposedly going in an ice age. How fast do we go into an ice age? We always take the most extreme view and present that. But we don't put the conservative views, which is like, yeah, in 100 years, by the end of the century, it'll be 3 degrees warmer. It was 10 degrees warmer this year or last year than this year in the summertime here. I know. I don't have air conditioning. I can tell. Mm-hmm. There was only 1 week of miserable weather. Last year there was 6 or 7 weeks of absolutely miserable weather. Okay, how can you explain that if the weather's always, because the uncertainty of energy coming into a system can never be predicted. It's called chaos theory. Okay, when the butterfly flaps its wings, it affects the energy output of the planet everywhere. So there's too much variables to people to predict. So what you have is unpredictability, which is exactly what we have. This year we've had all the floods throughout the entire world on a greater scale than anything. What supplied all these floods? You would have to have a lot of melting water to do that. Exactly what we see. A lot of melting glaciers, a lot of changing temperatures affecting the amount of water in the atmosphere. And what does it result in? Huge floods.
But it's not unnatural.
Of course not. These are 100-year floods that we thought what used to only, when the glaciers are here, they only happen every 100 years because it's stable. But when the glaciers melt and the weather gets to move around much more and be affected from north to south,
So
too unpredictable.
But